So I've been playing a lot of Skyrim over the past few months, and in my most recent playthrough, I've got really into modding the game. My mod list keeps expanding regularly, with my favourites being story and expansion mods. But during my playthrough, I ended up playing a mod that ended up being such a pain just to get through, that when it was all said and done, I was glad I would never have to play it again. A mod so bad that when I looked for people talking about it on Reddit and other forums, all I could find were complaints. Not a single person trying to defend it. That mod is none other than the Brotherhood of old. Hey everyone, I'm Flip, and let me tell you why this Skyrim mod is bad. Brief disclaimer, this video is not intended to harass or incite harassment at the mod author and any of the team that worked on this mod. Remember, being a prick doesn't make you right. So obviously, as the title implies, Brotherhood of Old is a sequel story for the Dark Brotherhood, provided you didn't opt to destroy it in the vanilla game by attacking Astrid on sight. And the premise is as follows. As the new listener, you are rebuilding the Dark Brotherhood, recruiting potential new candidates through the same method you were recruited by Astrid in the vanilla game. However, the Night Mother has plans of her own, and outside forces threaten to undo the work you've been putting in to restore the Brotherhood, as well as a plan she made following the events of the Dark Brotherhood questline in Oblivion. This is not a spoiler-free video, so I'll get into all the details of all this soon enough. Now that is how I would sum up the premise of the story, and it falls in line with other quests you find in the vanilla game, in which it starts out how you'd expect, and then soon enough something much bigger than expected begins to happen. Now, I will come back to the main story later, but I want to start with the characters who are of importance in this mod. So, if you've played the vanilla Brotherhood storyline, you know who Nazir and Babette are, and as the two remaining Brotherhood assassins following that questline, they take up a more senior position within the Dawnstar Sanctuary. Babette actually receives next to no additions throughout this mod outside of a potential outfit change and to give you a quest item throughout the story. Nazir gets more of a focus, sort of acting as your right-hand man through everything, setting up the initial recruitments at the start of the questline, as well as assisting you in the search of the Brotherhood's enemies and becoming pseudo-leader of the Black Hand. Yes, you heard that correctly. Part of this game's story revolves around recreating the Black Hand, but we'll get into that later. Now, both Nazir and Babette are voiced by AI for this mod, and putting my own distaste for using AI to replicate other voice actors' work aside, this AI isn't even good at the fact that this is AI. This can partially be forgiven because the mod came out in 2018, but even so, I'm bundling these two characters together because they're actually a brother and sister duo, sibling Khajiit you recruit pretty much right at the start of the storyline. The pair of them do have an interesting dynamic and you spend a lot of time around them throughout the storyline. Only problem being, Jazaka's AI is more bugged than Serana's is in vanilla Skyrim. I cannot tell you how many times I would have to reload a save when I had him with me because he would either freeze and not provide any dialogue lines, essentially becoming impossible to interact with. On the contrary, Majira was just about the only thing in this mod that worked consistently, which, given every problem I ran into, is an achievement worthy of praise. There's honestly not much to say about Undil. He's a magic user you recruit in Markarth, who's gone crazy due to having the interesting ability to read minds, with the problem being he literally can't turn that off. He's crazy, but given how little time you actually spend with the character, there's not much I can say about him. His one downside is he's voiced by AI, and it's plainly obvious that's the case. All I have in my notes for Erin is useless addition, relevant only to her recruitment quest, and also Bosmer as Stinky. Okay, well, moving on. Here we are, the focus point of this entire questline. Vala is a much more impromptu recruit in comparison to the other original NPCs added by this mod. An imperial woman from a mercantile family, you find Vala in her own home having just murdered some Solitude guards who had allegedly been harassing her. Not really Brotherhood material, right? Wrong! She is the descendant of Lucien Lechance, who, according to this mod, had a one-night stand with a woman in Solitude that produced a child. Now, I feel like depending on who you ask, Vala is either sweet or annoying, and I fall on the side of people who find her annoying, not to mention poorly written. You'll be spending a lot of time around Vala in the mod, and whilst her AI is just about functional, her biggest problem is how rapidly and suddenly she progresses as an assassin, from killing in self-defense to basically becoming the speaker for the Black Hand in a couple weeks. Vala is fiercely loyal to you, but also really doesn't fit in with the whole feeling of the Dark Brotherhood. In fact, Vala suggests Aaron be recruited in the first place, which explains why the pair of them feel so different to the rest of your recruits, all of whom are hardened killers and are otherwise more capable to operate as independent assassins. Vala does play a more key role in the Night Mother's plans as well, which we'll get onto. So anyways, let's get into the meat of the story. Sure, you're rebuilding the Dark Brotherhood, but what does the Night Mother have in store for you, and why the fuck are there vampires in this large empty room with one prison cell staring at you? So given this is Dawnstar, we apparently have access to Vermina's Torpor, or rather, Babette does. By entering the Dream Stride, we're given access to a cutscene where Dumb and Dumber, I mean Banas Alor, Belisarius and Arquen, the POV you take in the Dream Stride, as spirits seemingly not after having killed Lucy and LeChance, with Banas stating his last memory after that was entering the Night Mother's crypt. You as Arquen reveal the truth surrounding the Dark Brotherhood's betrayal in Oblivion, to which the three of you approach relatives being held captive by a random lich, who is one of the many forgettable NPCs in this mod. So the Night Mother AI spirit shows up and explains the lich can trap the spirits in the body of their biological family members. The Night Mother has a plan to trap the soul of LeChance within his bastard descendant / child, so that he may truly be reborn. Despite this cutscene, she literally said, "It's not about LeChance, do you see why this story is already beginning to annoy me?" And by doing so, with LeChance and his passion for the Brotherhood restored, the Night Mother expects the entire Dark Brotherhood to just survive anything. Okay, I'm going a bit off track here, but let me explain why this plan, even in the time it's conceived, is pretty fucking dumb. Even though LeChance was proven innocent after his murder and he had an important role as speaker for the Black Hand, the Dark Brotherhood was a continent-wide organization, with the only real competition being the Morag Tong in Morrowind. LeChance certainly would be a poster boy to inspire morale in Brotherhood assassins, but given the Oblivion crisis and the general downfall of the Cyrodiilic Empire for the next couple of centuries, other factions within Tamriel suffered, with the Dark Brotherhood in Skyrim being the last of its kind thanks to the Great War. So the Night Mother's plan to go on a wild goose chase for a child that might not even be a psychopathic killer in the first place is a big fucking gamble that likely wouldn't pay off. Not to mention, after this cutscene and you eventually return to the Night Mother, her desire to renew this planet at the current time doesn't make any sense because you, the listener, have the ability to summon LeChance from the void at will. Ironically, the need for his descendant is void. Hell, the main threats in the storyline aren't even remotely interested in Vala or LeChance, despite one of them literally being the guys who were sent after LeChance's bastard kid in the first place. Luckily, you can find LeChance's descendant, Vala, through clues left behind by that Arquen lady you took the POV of during the time in the Dream Stride. Side note, I do appreciate the Dream Stride being used in this mod. I feel like it could open up so many avenues of storytelling within the game. So if any mod makers out there are watching that include the Dream Stride in their mods, please let me know so I can download and play it. Eventually, you come face to face with Arquen's spirit in her shack outside of Solitude, where she points you in the direction of Vala's house after explaining that Belisarius is very much dead and Balas had possessed his cousin's body, gone AWOL and joined the Morag Tong in Morrowind. Given that Arquen died alone because of this wild goose chase she was sent on, and with all the other sanctuaries in Tamriel being abandoned, she's naturally a tad pissed. What pissed her off the most is that she did manage to find LeChance's descendant after 100 years, only for him to stab her. Now, I will give props to the voice actress who voices Arquen here, Storm Watters. She does an extremely good job in this cutscene. Upon arriving in Vala's home, you hear her screaming like a madwoman and laughing too. Upon investigation, you find her surrounded by 3 dead guards. According to, well, just herself, they tried to... I can't say the word on YouTube, but it's the thing that's worse than murder. Yeah, the guards tried to do that to her. And then also apparently threatened to kill her once they were finished. After a brief conversation, you're able to convince Kavala she can't live in Solitude anymore, and joining the professional assassin that just broke into her home is the smartest choice. Which, to be fair, probably is. I mean, if 3 policemen broke into my house, threatened to do unspeakable things to me, and I killed them in self-defense, and then an MI6 assassin showed up and offered to hire me in exchange for working with him, I'd probably take that offer up without hesitation. Upon returning to the Dawnstar Sanctuary, the Night Mother gives you 2 instructions. Take your current initiates, the Khajiit Trins and Undil, on a couple of contracts and appoint Nazir and Babette to be speakers of the Black Hand. This is the last time Babette is ever relevant to the story. So you take your recent recruits on a couple of contracts that are not at all Dark Brotherhood contracts, but feel something more like you'd ask the companions to do. Undil and you are tasked to break into a Thalmor prison and free a dude's brother. and the Khajiit and you are hired to rescue this woman's children from her ex-husband. Now, I want to also talk about that second one. One thing a lot of quests in Skyrim give you are choices that have consequences of some kind depending on the choice you make. And some of those quests are based in a moral grey area of sorts, making the decision much harder. Such as killing Paarthunax. Yes, he helped fight back against Alduin and now leads the Greybeards, but he was both convinced by Kind to turn sides, and prior to that was complicit in Alduin's subjugation of the Nords and committed plenty of heinous crimes himself. But on the flip side, Delphine fails to see that Paarthunax is more than willing to help defeat Alduin once and for all, not to mention the Akaviri Dragon Slayers just kinda showed up one day and willingly opted to kill an entire sentient race. Not the best example, but it'll be the one most people who have played Skyrim would know about in terms of there actually being reasonable arguments for both choices. This quest with the Khajiit tries to do that. Upon approaching the ex-husband, he claims that his wife is not the mother of his kids and that he is rescuing them from her. Yet the mother makes the claim that her husband has had an injury that makes him forgetful and yet somehow should be aware of the fact he's lying. Not to mention the kids don't actually give you any information to back this up. And despite us being members of the Dark Brotherhood, nobody outside of the ex-husband's guard need to die. Things are further complicated when the husband claims his wife died in childbirth during the Great War and he spent 6 years trying to track down his kids, the only thing here that is true. You are given the option, however, to just kill them both for wasting your time, which is what I did because I had to reload the save and restart this quest 10 times before it fucking worked properly. Seriously, every quest had notable bugs, especially if they weren't in original locations added by the mod, and this quest in the overworld has some serious issues, with a lot of the time the ex-husband just being impossible to interact with no matter what you do, or the wife not being interactable when she shows up, or the kids just straight up not spawning at all. After you've reset that second contract 25 million times, you can speak with Vala again, where you can probe her for more of her story to get her to confess having killed more than just her guards in life. As a child, she tried to run away from home, only upon returning to find that her uncle had killed her mother, so she murdered her uncle for it. After this, you inform her of her heritage to Lucien Lechance. Following this conversation, the Night Mother summons the listener who came before you to teach the new recruits the 5 tenets of the Dark Brotherhood, and you start taking Vala on contracts, killing some corrupt Markov guards, and then a witch who's disturbing a man's dead family. This quest basically highlights why people can find Vala annoying, because she does just not shut the fuck up at any point. And despite supposedly being a killer by nature and having just taken an oath to the Dark Brotherhood, really enjoys talking about how the Brotherhood operates in detail to the client. Also, this quest is bugged, enjoy reloading your saves to complete it. After this quest, Vala convinces you to recruit Aaron. This is the last time Aaron is relevant. After that, you can fail to recruit an orc, or break him out of jail. It's not worth it since he's not relevant again after this either. During the next quest, you're tasked with dealing with some vampires by Perkius Cito, and in this quest, you cannot allow Vala to come with you. She objects with some shitty audio quality, and just out of the blue, you promote her to the role of Silencer, which basically means she can only answer to you and nobody else. Which doesn't make sense. It's like the ending of the College of Winterhold quest. She's been with the Brotherhood for like a week and suddenly has been promoted to one of its most important positions. In order to learn more about these vampires, you need to head to the original Brotherhood Sanctuary at night. And after reading a diary that is 131 pages long, where you learn about the Crimson Scars, an order of vampire assassins seated within the Dark Brotherhood with the desire to overthrow the Black Hand and take their place. Upon reporting this to Nazir, he reveals things were about to be much worse as the Morag Tong, or at least a small group of them that remain, have arrived in Skyrim, one of whom has been captured by the Brotherhood. The prisoner reveals that the Great Houses of Morrowind called upon the remaining Tong members to eliminate the Dark Brotherhood due to rumours that it was rebuilding, which, yeah, that's about the only thing to do with the Tong's presence that currently makes sense. After speaking with Undil, you form a plan to turn the Scars and Tong against each other by altering the writ of execution found on the dead Tong prisoner's body. You can use Perkius Cusio as bait, but before then, you need to ambush the Tong member in charge of the manhunt against you. When you arrive, you find none other than Banis as a woman! You know, one of the guys from the Dreamstride cutscene who joined the Tong about 100 years ago. Yep, he's here and has seemingly forgotten the Dark Brotherhood's purpose. He claims that he's joined the manhunt against you because he knows that you won't stop until all of Tamriel bows to Sithis. After this conversation, you need to exit dialogue and speak with him again right after to hear his sudden mental breakdown before eventually killing him. Also, his friend is bugged and just straight up won't turn hostile when he's supposed to in some circumstances. When returning to Dawnstar, Undil explains the plan to use Paarthunax as bait with a fake revival potion. And back to the large empty room you go. Here a member of the Crimson Scars shows up, aware that you're helping the man he wants dead. All you need to do is kill him here. For some reason, this encounter can happen outside of the room and the dude can deadass spawn without clothes for some reason. Didn't happen in my initial playthrough, but in the one where all these screen grabs came from, he did. After this, you then strike Paarthunax with the fake poison, plant the Writ of Execution and lock yourself in a cell. After the rest of the Scars show up and find the fake Writ of Execution, they leave you and you can return to Dawnstar to meet up with Vala and commune with the Night Mother, where Lucian LeChance.ai is summoned to speak with Vala, because reasons. The Night Mother reveals LeChance's spirit has tracked down the necromancers seen in the Dreamstride, and you need to take Vala there. But before that, appoint the two cats and mad wizard recruits who have only been assassins for a couple of weeks to lead the sanctuaries scattered across Skyrim. Seriously, I get the need to rebuild the Black Hand, but I don't think the newbies are the best candidates for the job yet. Turns out the Lich was in the Winterhold Sanctuary the whole time, and for some reason the entirety of the Dark Brotherhood needs to be there. Now here the Night Mother's plan becomes obvious. She wants the Lich to put LeChance's soul into Vala. Now regardless of whether you choose for the ritual to go ahead or not, the Crimson Scars show up. After a small conversation you kill them. However, Majira dies in the fight if you choose to stop the ritual. That about sums up the story for this mod. There is a side quest called Dead Drops, but there's not really much to talk about in regards to that small story. So this video was heavily focused on the story, I know, but given the main reason I installed the mod originally was for an expansion story, that's why I focused on it. And I will explain the key issues I have with it in a minute. In the description, the mod author defines it as script heavy, and thus it is inherently the Skyrim engine's fault because you heavily modded the game. When I first played through this mod, I had 4 installed: the unofficial patch, Paarthunax Dilemma, quest markers for those 24 gemstones, and this one. The author points you towards Falrum's tool script cleaner instead of actually addressing the bugs despite a relatively recent update, which was the one I played. Now I was an expert on coding terms, so I had to ask a few people I knew who were savvy with coding terms to explain what was meant by script heavy, and I was told that there's more code than is necessary. Now, hear me out. If the mod author is aware he has made a script heavy mod, why bother blaming the Skyrim engine when instead you can revise the code that isn't so buggy? I mean, this is the exact same problem Yarn Dev has been having for the past 6 years, and look how perfectly optimized his game is. Another technical issue is the audio quality. Now, I doubt every VA who did a voice for this mod recorded with the exact same shit microphone, and it sounds like they did, and I can't fault them for how the sound turned out. And I just can't fathom how the audio quality in this mod is so bad. A lot of the time it's too quiet, and the rest of the time it's loud and glitchy. Another issue is the original areas added by this mod. In fact, it's all square and empty. That big empty room I mentioned earlier, yeah, it's massive. About the same size as the main room in Dragon's Reach, and it's empty with no decoration or environmental storytelling, and this is true of a majority of new areas added in the mod. Empty open space with no decoration that provides any atmosphere. Now back to my issues with the story, the characters. Now while I have nothing wrong with recruiting new members for the Brotherhood, my problem with it was the fact that we'd get dedicated recruitment missions for 2 characters who were never relevant to the story at any point. Why introduce me to characters who I will never interact with again in any meaningful capacity? Another issue is the speed of which Vala seems to progress, which is she doesn't. Yes, she is a prodigy, but as a character she never really changes or grows. I feel like Vala had the potential to be a more in-depth character outside of her backstory, maturing as a killer and shutting up every once in a while. She seems to rise the ranks solely from nepotism, and her promotion to Silencer just seems like a way to get her to go away, rather than something that has any meaning or purpose behind it. And Vala isn't the only wasted potential here. The whole conflict with Ballas's emotional crisis of taking over his cousin's body and defection from the Brotherhood is never explored. He talks to you for one scene where he gets his information objectively wrong, and then you kill him. I just feel like there could have been more to that topic. Babette, funnily enough, is also wasted potential. As being the only remaining character at the start with Nazir, you'd expect it to be as important as he is in the workings of the Brotherhood. In reality, the few times you interact with her as part of this mod are very short, and given the origin of the Crimson Scars, it would have been interesting to see her dynamic with them. But nope, Nobody pays any mind to Babette in any scenario, not even the one involving vampires. Hi, this is Flip here. I'm recording this after having finished recording the original script for this video. And this is just a note. When I was doing some just brief fact checking and research, I actually found a post on Reddit made by the lead writer for the mod. The post of which I'll actually link in the description. And I'll also have it here on screen as well. I want to give a brief shout out to the lead writer here, as he does actually address some of the criticisms and problems I have mentioned in this video. And I didn't touch his first point because I thought, well, I'm a guy, that's not really my place. I don't think it was good, but I didn't want to talk about it just because of the sensitive subject material. But I am glad he did address it. So I'm glad that he has addressed all of this. That's all I wanted to add onto here. This is an unscripted bit, so sorry if it seems a bit rushed. Now, when I originally wrote this script, I made the claim that this mod is clickbait due to its bugs, story, and claims about the entire cast being voiced by real people. However, after some thinking, I opted to retract that claim after taking a look. I can tell at the end of the day, this mod is a passion project at heart. This mod does feel like a love letter to the Dark Brotherhood questline of Oblivion. I just wish that more effort had been put into refining the mod. Now, I've experienced bugs in other mods before. They do happen. But never before have I dealt with so many bugs that I couldn't justify it as being, well, mods will be mods. And I hope, despite the excuses that have been made in regards to the code and bugs, that the author does eventually tackle these bugs and updates the mod to a point in which it is consistently playable. And even if they opt to abandon this mod and go and make another one, I wish them not only the best of luck, but also they consider the criticism in regards to the Brotherhood of Old, and that a potential next mod is much better, and that the previous issues do not repeat themselves. Thanks for watching. For anyone who's made it to the end of the video, thanks a lot. I put a lot of effort into this video, and I'm hoping it can make more long-form essay-like content in the future. Again, don't harass the mod author or anyone who worked on the mod, that's not chill. Very briefly before I let you go, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to a friend of mine, Hyria, who has recently started her own storytime channel. So I've given her the chance to advertise herself here very briefly.
Hey guys, it's Ray. I do storytime animations and animatics on YouTube, in amongst some gaming videos and a lot of chaos. Thank you to Flip for letting me just record a little bit to promote myself. He is an amazing guy. Make sure you support him and follow all his stuff. Thank you!
Ray's been a friend of mine for a while, and I'd appreciate it if you could go show us some support as she uploads. You may even see some crossover content between our channels. And don't forget to subscribe to me as well.